There's so many jobs within the sports or football world that you can go and do, but I think the main things are to enjoy it and to be you.
So hello and welcome to the UCFB LMA Insight Series, where we speak to you some of the most important and influential names in the world of football. My name is Neil, and today I'm joined by an England and Arsenal legend whose huge contribution to the growth of the women's game in England cannot be overstated. With 129 caps and a raft of titles to her name, I'm delighted to be joined by Rachel Yankey. Rachel, thanks for joining me. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, great. Thank you for joining us, and I'm looking forward to finding out more about your career and what's going on.
Cool.
We want to start. I'd like to start at the start of people's kind of careers, as it were, and doing some research for this interview. I read that when you was 8 years old, you had your hair cut to join a boys' football team, and you called yourself Ray. Is that right? Obviously, I suppose looking back, it probably sounds like quite a funny story, but was that maybe just one example of some of the barriers you've had to overcome as a female player, especially when you were younger as well? I mean, as another barriers in your career as well?
Yeah, probably. I don't think when I was that young, I sort of understood it as a barrier. Yeah, not that it's normal, but I just love playing football. My friends were going to join a football team, and I wanted to tag along. I can't remember when it was, but they were going to get their hair cut, and I went with them, and the barber sort of said next customer and looked at me, and maybe a little bit of peer pressure there. Yeah, I sat down and asked for a haircut like my two mates. So yeah, came out with a very short back and sides. Yeah, when I went to join their football team, obviously we understood that there was no girls at that football team. It was an all boys team, and my friend Lawrence, he said, well, why don't we just call you Ray, and let's just pretend. So, I think for all of us, we didn't, I suppose when you look at it, when you're a kid, you just want the best people. And I know that's I've worked in primary schools, and kids can be so spiteful, but what they want to do is they want to win, and they want they want the best people in their team to help them win. And my two mates knew that I could play football, so they were like, well, come on down, we'll just call you Ray. If they won't let you play as Rachel, we'll just call you Ray. And I was like, okay, cool. Ray is the initials of my name spell out Ray, so it was pretty easy to sort of to do that. But I mean, as far as fooling people, when everybody speaks about football, and definitely back then, and thought of football, they thought of boys playing football. So if I told them my name was Ray, I had short hair, I looked like a little boy, nobody was ever going to question it. So because of the way that I played football, the way I moved across the football pitch, it was agile, it was elegant. I was good. I was left-footed. I suppose there weren't too many other players that were left-footed. Everybody just thought, well, that's just another boy playing football, and it was quite easy to fool people. It was only I think the harder thing for me, and probably more of a barrier, is when I joined the girls' football team. I wasn't allowed to play for the boys' team. I got told at a cup final that I wasn't allowed to play. But when I moved to the girls' team, I now was playing in the right gender group, but I had short hair and I looked like a little boy. And everybody said, "Why is that boy playing for the girls' team?" And that was harder to take, and I felt more of a person that was being looked at. I felt more of an outcast in somewhere where I should have been accepted. So for me, growing up, if you'd given me a choice of whose football team to walk into, I would have walked into the boys' football team all day long, because that's where I felt comfortable. Which, as a grown-up and an adult saying that, it kind of makes me feel a little bit sad to think that I really didn't feel like I fitted in a girls' football team. But that's how I felt.
I mean, do you think, and hopefully this is the case, that young girls today, would they still have to hide their identity to play football, or we moved on enough where you can just play?
I think we've moved on enough in terms of we have grassroots teams that are mixed. We have I suppose, an exit route for children that are talented, that they can go to Centre of Excellence, they can join academies, they can work their way through a football club to the first team. But I do still hear stories of, people saying that they've cut their hair short, they've pretended to be a boy, and that to me is disappointing, because I think, well, mine was a long time ago, when I was 8 and when I was young. This is now. This is, we shouldn't be. We shouldn't, with all the education that we've got, with all the facilities that we've got, with how far women's football has moved on, with how far our lives have all moved on, we shouldn't be seeing people having the same barriers as I had back then. But unfortunately, I think it's very small, but I think there still is.
I'm going to take a guess, but for the boys team you play for, you've gone on and had the most successful career, right? So
probably, I don't know. I can't remember everybody now, but yeah, maybe.
So I mean, you've done a lot of firsts throughout your career, broken records. One of them was you're the first ever professional female player to be registered in England. You're part of a group of players at that time that done that. Did you recognise that landmark at the time when it happened?
I think I recognised, in terms of Fulham becoming professional, we were the first team to do that. We knew that there was a lot of responsibility, a lot of pressure, a lot of people questioning and saying it wasn't the right thing for us to be doing. There wasn't a professional league. Why, we get to train every day, and then, get to play on a Sunday, we should win everything, and trying to put more pressure on us, where really it was a group of players that had been put together. They hadn't been brought up together, and you were trying to really make them gel, which is, credit to the manager in terms of bringing us all our qualities and making everybody gel and play well together. So yeah, those things. But in terms of me personally being the first, I mean, I've sort of always, I've heard it. I always obviously know it, but sort of, yeah, whatever, it's, I don't know how the registration process works. Maybe my name went through before other people, and that's why. I mean, usually with Yankee, I'm at the end, but yeah, I don't know. But definitely proud to be part of that first team.
And see, since then, the women's game in England has taken a massive growth, which is fantastic. And the subsequent professionalisation of the game, then the WSL, did you foresee that happening at the time? And it's kind of it's huge growth in that period.
At the time of Fulham, I mean, obviously the FA had said that they wanted to make when Fulham went professional, it was because Mohammed Al-Fayed had seen the 99 World Cup, which was over in America, and seen the amount of spectators that watched the games, seen the growth of the game, and thought, wow, this is really taken off. This is, I suppose, a good business model to get involved with. Then heard the fact that the FA were going to make the women's league professional in this country. Fulham were 2 leagues below the top league, so he decided to back his team and put his money out there and make a professional team earlier than the 3 years, so that when it did get to the start of the league, Fulham would obviously be in the top league, and they'd be able to have a head start and to be able to win trophies. I think he'd done that. He'd done exactly what he said he was going to do. The FA obviously didn't make the league, and then you only had one professional team playing against amateur teams, and obviously Fulham men's team at that point weren't doing so well. To pay one group of players that are not bringing money back into a club, I can understand that it's not a sensible business move, and that's why Fulham then became semi-professional. So, I totally get that. In terms of I think at the time that Fulham ended, did I think that it would ever be professional in this country? No, not how it is now, because I thought that was the opportunity. Fulham changed so many things. It proved that you could bring a group of players. Yes, some players in the first season were international and were of a high quality, but there were a lot of players that had actually been at Fulham for a few years before that, and that had worked their way into the first team, that were making, playing in the first team with internationals, that the team had gelled and the team had moved on so far. So I think it had shown that if you give players the right level of training, the right education in how to look after their body and become a professional, if you give them that and you help them and support them, that you can make a fantastic team. That, at Fulham we went on to win trebles, we went on to qualify and play in the Champions League. You can bring success. And then to end it and there to be no professional league, it was kind of like, well, why isn't anybody looking at this team that have proved that it can be done? The fact that, yes, it has been done now and in WSL is thriving. Could it have been done sooner? Possibly. Or was it the right time to wait and get everything in place? I don't have the answers to that. I don't know. But thankfully there is, a league now which has people backing it, good sponsorship, and obviously I suppose the business side of it is where you've got to look to make sure that the players are playing well, but off the pitch, the business side of it is sustainable, so that you can bring people in, that you can get, obviously when we can, get fans and bums on seats and people enjoying the games, and give the players everything that they need to do to produce a good quality style of football that people enjoy watching.
The core of your career was that period where the women's game was really starting to accelerate. Obviously, with your Indian success, your club success, you are a household name for the game. Now, you might have to not be so modest for this question, but how do you feel you personally contributed towards the growth of the game?
Oh gosh, yeah, I think it's hard. I think for me, I just think I enjoyed playing. I knew that I had responsibility. I knew that there was, from a young age, I knew that there were eyes on me, and obviously playing for a successful team, Arsenal, playing for England. I think all of us knew, when playing for England, the pressure and the fact that if we could go to a World Cup or a Euros, and if we could win something, how much that would change the outlook of women's football. Unfortunately, we didn't manage to do that, but I think we all understood that we had a part to play, and that we had to make sure when we talk about football, when we end up moving on from football and pass through our messages to the younger players, is that you have to really, it's difficult to bring up women's football because you're trying to educate people. Yes, football everybody understands, but women's football has got such a confusing background and you're trying to educate and get people to buy into it, and really there's a lot of people that maybe it's not their thing, and do you know what, that's okay, but there are people that actually want to watch women football, that actually see the how much it can play, and don't compare it to the men's, because once you see people sort of saying, oh, but it's not as quick as the men's football, well, that's kind of an obvious, because if we look at, I don't know, this fastest sprinter in the world, male or female, the guy's going to be quicker because of the way that our bodies are made. So it's just trying to speak to people and bring across the game that yes, it is football, but it will be played and looked at in a different way, but that's okay.
Did you, or do you still feel pressure maybe as a role model?
I don't think I really feel pressure. I mean, I think there's a responsibility there to make sure that the game of football is looked at in the right way. I think with with women's football, that hopefully when we all get back to games, the beautiful thing about women's football is you can go to the stadium and you can actually meet these players. Something that is so, you look at your Premier League footballers, they're not touchable. They're there, they inspire us from a distance, but you rarely get to actually meet them and talk to them and have a photo with them and relate in that sort of very contactable way. Women's football's like that, and some of the players, especially in the WSL now, because of the investment that the league's got, because of the professionalism, then it's attracting the best players in the world. You're getting world champions, Olympic champions coming over to England and playing, and some of the best players in the world, and you can actually go and watch them, whether it's whether you're looking because you want to be a coach or you want to work in the football industry. You can go there, you can meet these people, you can interview them, you can watch them, you can get a real deep insight, I think. And that's one of the beauties of the women's game for me, which we don't want to lose. We don't want to distance ourselves from that connection with fans, with people that want to get involved with the game, I think.
And with the obviously continuing growth of the game will come more opportunities. Have you seen that yourself as an ex-pro, and then thinking of our students as well that want to go on and work in football, work in sport, with a bigger industry, if you like, surrounding the women's game? What extra opportunities have you seen available?
Yeah, I definitely think there's more opportunities. There's even more opportunities for players now than there was when I was playing, and definitely when I was stopping players. I think the players that came before me, like I said before, some fantastic players that if they'd had the opportunities that the players now have, would, some fantastic talented players that would be household names that people would have really enjoyed watching. But unfortunately, the time that they played, they didn't have the opportunities of being a professional, and obviously the media coverage that we have now. So people don't necessarily know about them, and I think the game has missed those players, and it hasn't necessarily gone back and helped them to put back into women's football, or to put back into the game of football, where I think they have so much to offer. I think now the game has recognised that and is trying to correct that and make sure that players that are not playing anymore are getting the chance to work with younger players, the chance to speak about football, to go into football clubs, to have an impact on the game through their experiences. Because I for one think that's important. So I definitely do think there's more opportunities, and I think there will be more opportunities as the great game still continues to grow and there's more investment. And obviously, a massive thing would be for an England team to go out there, or a GB team to go out there and win a tournament, a major tournament, because that brings media attention, that brings revenue, that businesses want to attach themselves with something that's successful.
And that brings me on to the next question quite nicely. So England's recent performances at tournaments have been very good. Extra coverage on the BBC, good viewership, all part of that game's growth. In your opinion, what does that England team have to do then to go to the next stage and win something? And I suppose next year's Euros here in England is the perfect opportunity, right?
Yeah, definitely. In terms, they have to win. How they do that, I suppose.
$1 billion question, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those ones. Everybody watch football. Depending on how you like to see football played, you want to see a beautiful style of football, but you know what? People just remember you for winning it. So I think the team now, it's got to the stage that you have to go on, you have to win a tournament. And I think they know that. We knew that when we were playing. We knew that if we could win a tournament, it would change so many people's opinions. It would change the attention that the team would get, that women's football would get. It would be easier to attract young players and to get, obviously, money to be able to build new sort of structures in terms of centre of excellence and youth setups, and obviously to help the game grow. It all goes round in I suppose, a vicious circle. But thankfully now the difference is that the game is professional. These players can train, work every day with the best support around them to give them the best opportunity to go out on the pitch feeling fresh, feeling fit, and go out there and do their jobs. And it's down to them then, isn't it?
Definitely, we'll all be wishing them well next year, that's for sure. But you're sticking with England. That at one point, with 129 caps, you were the most capped England player ever, male or female. So a few of your colleagues have since kind of passed that mark, but at the time, could you put that achievement into words, really? Most appearances ever by an England footballer.
Yeah, it's a mad one, to be honest with you, because for me, I just wanted to play. I just wanted to get games. I remember the meeting before when we sort of spoke about it, and I was just like, look, it hadn't been done. I still needed to play that game. I still needed to, after the game was different. There's, a little bit of a celebration and feeling happy that, obviously you've managed to beat a record and to manage to get as many caps more caps than anybody else. But before it was just total focus on wanting to play the game and wanting to go out there and do your job and enjoy the game and get a win. I suppose when you're not playing anymore, you can look back and think, wow, to get one cap for England's amazing. To get 129 is just unbelievable. But I think there's been many fantastic players, and I know Farah's the leader at the moment. I don't even know, 170 or odd or whatever she's got.
Big number, I know that. Yeah,
it's a huge number. But I think you just look back, and obviously players that were kids when I was in the team, to see them play so well and what they've achieved is still a nice feeling that I did what I did, but they've gone on and played that many games. But it shows also how far women's football has gone on, because the amount of games that we now play, the amount of tournaments. Before, when I was sort of a younger player within the team, playing it, obviously you've got your qualifiers for your Euros, your qualifiers for your World Cup, and then if you get to the tournament, that's more games. But then the Algarve Cup was a tournament that was played by elite countries, and you were invited to play in that. So if you weren't invited to play in that, then obviously that's a handful of games that you weren't getting, and you had to be good enough. I think it shows that England teams are now good enough because they're invited to play in the She Believes Cups, which obviously the American Federation, made up their own tournament and hand-picked who they wanted to play. So they could have picked any country, and they picked England. So I think it's big credit to how far we've sort of come on, that we're being selected. Teams are looking at us and saying, do you know what, this England team, we want to keep playing against them because they're some of the world's best there.
I want to get your opinion on something, maybe a slightly controversial issue, on the debate around reducing the size of goals and pitches in the women's game. I know Chelsea boss Emma Hayes, I think she initially raised it in a newspaper colour. She's obviously a very respected name in the game, and her voice can carry quite a lot of weight. But is that something you think could or should be considered, or was that maybe quite insulting to the female game?
I don't think it could be considered, because, and I'm looking from I suppose a grassroots level going up, it would never happen, because it's hard enough to try and find a pitch to play on. But yeah, if you're going to change the size of the goals, or even the size of the pitch? I'm not, was it just the goals?
Goals and pitch, I believe. Yeah.
I just don't see that you would ever. There's not enough teams with enough money that they would that they could have their own pitch. So therefore, teams now at the moment they're sharing pitches with men's football grounds. So how are you gonna, measure up a pitch on a Saturday for the men's game, and then change all the goals and the measurements for a Sunday for the women's game? I just don't see that it would ever be feasible. So for me, I kind of read it and dismissed it within a second.
Carry on as we are, definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. And Rachel, I've got one more question, and it's obviously we've got a lot of students at UCFB who want to go on and work in football and sport in various capacities, coaching, media. If you could give them one bit of advice to go on and achieve to work in that industry, what would it be?
Oh gosh, I think you've obviously got to be hardworking. Whatever you do, you've got to be dedicated and hardworking. But I suppose be passionate, be yourself. Let who you are shine through. And yeah, I don't know. It's a hard one. I think. If we're looking at, say, being a journalist, I think it's important that whoever you're interviewing, you really research them well. I know one of the worst things where people have got things wrong. You might let them off once, but twice, 3 times, you're thinking you've not done the research. So why am I giving you the time of sort of answering your questions properly? So if you do a good job in researching and getting to know the person and being really, I suppose, likable, making the person you're interviewing comfortable, I think you get a lot more out of them. If it was coaching you wanted to do, then, asking the question of what kind of coach are you? How do you want to coach? How do you want players to see you? How do you want to work? So just really kind of try and really think deeply about yourself and what you can bring and what your strengths are. And then obviously trying to match up with people that have different strengths. If you're a player, then obviously just trying to go out there and listen to coaches, but produce every time that you can go onto the pitch. Trying to every game get better and better. Obviously, people always talk about improving your weaknesses, but improve your strengths as well. I think are big things, and likewise, if you want to be, physios, photographers, there's so many jobs within the sports or football world that you can go and do. But I think the main things are to enjoy it and to be you.
That's some brilliant advice, Rachel. Thank you so much for your time today.
No problem. Thank you.